Once again, Jeff, Mark, and Matt are here with an episode of the Mormon Dads podcast. It's episode number 22. And just as a follow-up, I feel like I should let you guys know, and last time we talked about testimonies and that we hadn't borne our testimonies in a while, and so I have been asked to bear my testimony in the Christmas program this year. So Karma, I guess your guys' turn is coming up soon. You will not be able to escape it. So, and when I got the call, I was asleep on my daughter's floor, and so maybe I really didn't get asked, and maybe it was just a dream, because I got the phone call and woke up and was like, "Hello," and they said, "Brother Edvic, we want you to share your testimony for 1 to 2 minutes about Christ and the importance of Christmas," or whatever. And I said, "Okay," and then I just thought, that is unusual, or not unusual, but that is, what's the word I'm looking for?
Ironic?
Ironic is the word. That's what I was looking for, ironic, a little Alanis Morissette-ish. So yeah, so there we go. I will be fulfilling my, what did I say, 4 times in 2016? I'm going to bump that.
Did we commit to that?
No, we didn't commit to it,
Oh.
but it just came up, and I thought, hey, now I can bump that over into 2016.
All right.
So, anyways, tonight we wanted to continue a discussion we had a few weeks ago, and then it dovetails into the Christmas season. Mark, you're going to have to work your magic on how to combine these two. You're always the one that combines.
Okay.
Talking about. But we were talking about the helpful and the helping people who are in need, and then we got talking about basically the question of who is our neighbor, and who is it our priority to serve, and who is it our priority to help. Should we be helping those that are right around us? Should we be helping those more on a global type of scale? And we just kind of wanted to flesh that out a little bit more. And so there's, we talked a little bit about the refugee situation, and there's been development on that over the last couple of weeks, and people's opinions have been pretty strong. I don't know that that's what we want to talk about tonight, but anyways.
And we're tying that into Christmas?
And we're tying that into Christmas.
Well, I think everybody's always more willing, or let's even use the word conscientious, to help others around Christmas time as opposed to other times throughout the year. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Agree.
But I guess one thing I've thought about this, where I've not struggled is the wrong word, but where I've tried to figure this out in my head is I only have so many resources. And so should I be helping my neighbor that just moved in, or should I be donating to the humanitarian efforts of the church? Should I be going through my local government and sponsoring a Syrian family? Like there's way more need than there are resources for me, and at some point we have to prioritize where we serve and where we give our time and our resources and our money. So I guess that's kind of the thing I want to come out of this tonight is what's the best way to prioritize that, because at some point it comes to a cost for someone else, at a cost for someone else.
Right.
Well, and that's
opportunity cost. Is that the economics word for that?
Well,
that's
it's
right.
Scarcity. Well, an opportunity cost, yeah. But it's a real constraint. We really do only have, at least when I say we, I'm talking about my family.
Mhm.
I don't know what kind of deep pockets you have hidden in your bank accounts, Mark.
Well, you know those city managers up in Canada. I hear they do pretty well.
That's right.
So, but that's a great question though, Jeff. Is like, how do we prioritize? So I wanted to kind of set the context of this discussion by talking a little bit about the story of the Good Samaritan that's in Luke chapter 10, because the story was given in response to a question that was a certain lawyer is who it's attributed to, asked the question about, what is it that we need to do, and he talked about loving God and then he, in verse 29 in Luke 10, he says, but neighbor. And so that's like the question we're kind of asking is, who is my neighbor?
Yeah.
But for the lawyer, the underlying motivation was to justify himself so that he didn't have to. And what I'm hearing all of us say is, it's not about justifying ourselves so that we don't have to. It's about, we want to. It's how do we prioritize it, and how do we make the best decision with the resources that we have to be able to help. And when we talked about this before, I talked about how I give to the things that make me happy and the things that bring value to me. And I don't know that that's the right answer, but so Jesus' response to this lawyer is to tell the story of the Good Samaritan, where the people who should have stopped and helped him, who were part of, who were Jewish or Levite or weren't enemies like the Samaritans were enemies, but it was the enemy, and it was the Samaritan that had compassion on this man who had been beaten up on the side of the road. And so a pretty direct lesson, I think, even though it was in parable form, of who we're expected to see as our neighbor, which is really everyone and anybody that we can help. But that doesn't answer your question of how do we prioritize.
Well, the first thing that popped in my head when Jeff asked, do I help my neighbor who just moved in next door, or do I donate to the church welfare system, or...
Well, and the good news is I don't have any neighbors that just moved in, so...
and all the ones that are there are doing just fine.
That makes the decision more easy for me.
Yeah.
No, but the first thing that popped in my head when Jeff said that was, my initial reaction was, you start closest to you and work your way out. And I don't know why, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but in thinking about it, one good reason would be, part of the reason for helping other people is there's some, I don't want to say selfishness, but you get something in return for it. Does that make sense? And I get a lot more out of helping my neighbor next door and seeing the benefits of having helped him than I do putting money in an envelope and giving it to the church welfare system. Now, on the other hand, that's a very good, it's an awesome system, and if you ever watch the internet channel after conference, they tell you some of the things that they do with those funds, and I'd like to think, and I have the faith, that less money gets quote-unquote wasted with the church welfare system than it does with some other nonprofit agencies, because even in a nonprofit, people need to get paid, and some salaries are probably too high, and some of the money gets lost with the middleman between me and the actual people I'm trying to help. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so I read one time an article in the Ensign, and me and my wife have done it ever since. The guy in the articles mentioned, how many members of the church are there? 12 million? if everybody put $1 a month with their tithing slip for the church welfare system, that's $12 million a month they would have to help people all around the world. Now, not everybody does that, but you made the joke about you're not sure how deep my pockets were, and you're my boss, so you do know. No, I'm just kidding. But that's doable, and I'm contributing. And again, if everybody were in a position to do that, and some people give more, and some people don't give anything, but I still feel like that I'm putting into that pot that's able to help those people that I will never have contact with and never be able. They always say when you waste food, there's starving children in Africa. Well, there is, but I don't know how to get the food to the people in Africa, right? And so this is a way where I can do my part, how small it may be, to still help out there.
Well, and I think the church obviously has a wonderful welfare program, and when you say that there's probably less waste and stuff like that, I think that that's probably true. There are other places to give that aren't part of the church. I think of, and I really should have brushed up on this before, but there's a group that builds schools in third world countries. There's a group that not lots, but there's a few that are really focused on bringing drinking water to people in Africa and people in third world countries that will totally change their lives,
right,
to have the drinking water. And so those are places that I've considered. I haven't donated to any of them yet, but I've considered as if and when our income goes up, that's a place that I would like to look at making some donations and maybe even doing some service work for, just because and this is going to sound cynical, but you can get the most bang for your buck that way.
Right.
Like, those are things that you can make a small investment and have a huge impact on lives. Something like mosquito nets for kids in Africa. You can, it's $6 for a mosquito net that lasts for 2 years, and you save a kid's life because he doesn't get malaria from the mosquitoes. But also, like I said, I haven't donated to any of those places, but it's something that I hear around in podcasts that I listen to and stuff like that, and think, that's something that I should look into, but then don't. So
let me ask this. I was going to kind of go there later on in the podcast, but Mark brought it up, and this whole prioritizing, and then let's call them third-party groups that we can donate to. Do we feel in the church? Well, let me back up. First of all, Mark, I totally agree that the LDS Church Humanitarian Fund is probably has one of the lower administrative costs, so that's a great thing because it goes right to the people who need it. And I don't know, is there a position of the church, or is there a unwritten rule in the church that we donate to the church over other agencies like Rotary International or Red Cross or the Salvation Army? Or do we feel?
I've never heard of one.
I don't know either. I notice in my community, again, predominantly LDS, that some of these other charitable organizations have a tough time because they rely on the donations from the local residents, but most of the local residents only donate to LDS causes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes it pretty tough for some of these other groups. And some days, I could do more, I'm sure, but sometimes I feel for those groups a little bit, trying to participate in these international things or just non-LDS funded humanitarian efforts. It can be pretty tricky, and I don't know if you feel the same way in Utah, that's where the big chunk of donations go to the church and others maybe struggle a bit. But
I think that there's, I'm sure a huge chunk of donations go to the church, but the church also donates to homeless shelters in Salt Lake City.
Oh, okay.
That are that are other. I only know of one for sure that I served at and talked to the guy, but that the church donated. Um, and really, I don't know if it was funds, but I know that they had Deseret, like peanut butter and honey and stuff like that on their shelves, and so the church was donating to this non-denominational house. So I think that that's probably a real challenge, is that a lot of people just say, you know what, I'm going to donate to the church and call it good.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So what about us then? If you were to take $100 of money that you would donate throughout the year, what percentage of that went to the church and what percentage of that went to third-party donors?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Probably 95 and 5.
Not
Church
counting
and-
your tithing.
No,
Back
not-
tithing, yeah.
not counting tithing. Are you counting tithing?
No.
No, not
What
counting
about-
tithing. I'd say, I mean, if somebody I know approaches me about whether it's their kid doing a fundraiser or whether it be for school or for another party, if you're raising money for some kind of association or something, for me it would depend on the cost, whether I feel it's something that we can do or not. But if I was to take all the money I donated in a calendar year, I would say probably 95% of it is my fast offerings or other things that the church does. Like sometimes our ward sells chocolate-covered strawberries that you can buy for mothers on Mother's Day. That money goes into one of the church funds, or just kind of other things like that. So I'd say probably 95% of the money in the last year I've donated to some kind of church-related thing. Maybe 5% to people I knew who were raising money for something different.
See, and I reversed that for us.
Really?
Yep, because most of we have our tithing and fast offerings set aside, but then we have a little bit of money that we set aside every month just to give away to whatever.
That's awesome.
And most of that has gone to fundraisers for kids in school. Like they'll come and want us to buy cookie dough or whatever.
Yeah.
Or this one kid sold a really cool flashlight that I don't have yet. I hope I get it soon, but it was like $30 or whatever, and so I look in this little account, and if we don't give it away one month, it just accrues the next month so that we have it when we we can do that, because that's something that I love to do. My wife has always been kind of a miser, and she will admit that, but I've brought her over to my side that there's a lot of gratification in being able to give and being able to like one thing this summer, there was someone that I knew that needed help painting something or whatever, and two girls that I knew were posting on Facebook saying, hey, we'll do odd jobs or whatever to earn money for school, and so I hired them to paint someone else's thing to kind of give them the money that they needed and help this other person out. And so I would say that for us, and we give to disabled American veterans too. I think it's like $5 or $6 a year probably, or $10 a year for them. But there's just little things that we give to, and I would say that we're 95%. If you don't include fast offerings of the other stuff, like we don't really donate to the humanitarian fund.
Yeah.
So I was counting fast offerings, just not tithing.
Yeah.
So fast offerings were probably, if we counted fast offerings, I would say we're probably 50-50.
Yeah.
Matt, you made me think. You guys ever listen to Dave Ramsey at all?
Yeah.
Jeff, you know who that is?
Yeah, I know who it is. Yeah.
Okay. And so I really like the fact he talked one time about he taught his kids any money that they earn, they split it up 40-40-20. And so 40 of it they had to put away and save. 40% of it they got to do whatever they wanted with at any time. And 20% of it they had to save with the purpose of giving away. And I thought that was very interesting because, you know, our LDS culture, we learned you pay 10% for tithing. And so that left, you know, people, kids, adults, whoever was doing this, that left them with 10% of their income still to be able to give away if you're in a position where you can afford to do that. On top of giving your bills money to the church. What was that?
It's easier when you're a kid and you don't have any bills.
Right.
Yeah, it's all profit when you're a kid.
Yeah.
So let me ask this then, because I'm the one posing all the questions here for some reason, but because it's something you said, Matt, that got me thinking. What's your feelings about anonymous versus non-anonymous donations? So do you feel that one is better than the other, or it's just totally the context of it, or should one strive to be anonymous in their donations? Is that a more noble pursuit?
It depends, in my opinion.
Okay, on what?
So I don't know, because we've done it both ways too, where we've been anonymous, and then there's been times where we weren't anonymous about giving. So I think I don't know. I really don't know what the answer is. I guess part of it could be what's your motivation.
Yeah.
Is your motivation to look cool, and are you giving with the intent of receiving something in return, whether it's, you know, gratitude or visibility, or that people think you're this super great person? Which, I'll be honest, when we look at we had the pride lesson a little while ago, and it talked about, and I'm totally veering off, but it talked about that pride is a reason why people do the wrong thing. And I thought, you know what, I think for me, my biggest danger is that pride makes me do the right thing for the wrong reasons.
Okay.
Where do I do the right thing for what people will think of me, or the, you know, that people will say, you know, you're such a good guy or whatever. And I am guilty of that, and I fall into that. I'm still doing the right things, but is my motivation the right way? And so I think giving can be the same way. It's like fasting with a sad countenance, right?
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing it? To be seen as being righteous and being good, or to really help? And so I think it depends. And we've done it anonymously, and that's been cool, but we also have done it where the people know that it was us, and we've loved doing that too. So I did hear on one podcast, and it talked. This is more for like big donors or something like that, but they really advocated for donating and not doing it anonymously, because when other people see you donate and make a difference, or do something that makes a difference, they're more likely to do it.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a social, not pressure, but there's, like, if everybody's donating anonymously, then you don't get that social spread of other people who might donate.
Kind of the whole pay it forward idea, too?
Kind of like the whole pay it forward idea. It's kind of like, there's a story that I love about Joseph Smith, too, where there was somebody, and I can't remember what happened. I think their house burned down or something like that. I can't remember. And but he was in a meeting with a bunch of the priesthood at that time, and they came in and said, hey, this has happened, and he said, I feel sorry for this family to the tune of $5 or whatever, and he donated it. And so, I like that, and using his influence to say, I'm going to donate this and help, and I'm sure that brought other people into doing it. So that's one reason to give, not anonymously, to let people know that you're giving.
So I am, while I pose the question, I'm of the position that you are, Matt, that I'm okay with there being some connection to serving or giving or donating. I look at, if you look at any of these big benevolent organizations, the church included, they don't go in clandestine and don't let anyone know they're there. They make a splash of being there and helping and giving aid and doing what they can. They're not hiding behind anything there. But for me, I think there's some context that so let's take this, going right back to the beginning topic of who should you serve, your next door neighbor or someone across the globe. And then what I was thinking about in context of being anonymous. If I've got a friend or a neighbor in town who's in a bad way, and I want to lend him a little bit to get through the Christmas season, or I want to help him out, he probably doesn't want me advertising that all over town because he doesn't want people to know he's in a bad way.
Right.
So as long as what you're doing, if it is not anonymous, if it's known, but it certainly doesn't embarrass or cause any extra grief to the person you're donating to, I don't necessarily see an issue with it, because I think you can create a bit of a movement. You can get some people behind you. You can gain momentum, and do some good things. But my wife and I will donate anonymously. Last year, I just took some cash to our bishop and said, "Do you have a family that needs a Christmas dinner?" "Yep." "How much does that cost nowadays?" "Well, it's probably $100. Okay, will that cover? Here it is." And we just decided to do that. We don't know who got it, and I don't care.
Right.
But that family doesn't want me to know who they are either. So that made it better for everybody. But no, I'm okay with either way, given the context, for sure.
Well, I think sometimes when the people know about it, there's a powerfulness of knowing that there are people gathering in your favor to help you out, if that makes sense. There's people behind you. You're not on your own. You don't have to do it on your own, but you have people who want to be there to help you.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's like Jeff said, like a sub for Santa kind of thing. That's not something that most families want everybody to know, that, hey, here's our sub for Santa families that we're like the ward council. The ward council knows, and they, and then the bishop divvies that out or whatever. But I think that I forgot where I was going. But I do know that I only have 7% of battery left and don't have a charger. So.
Well, one thing too I think is important, guys. We've talked a ton about this monetary piece of serving our neighbors and serving others. But if you remember, what does the scripture say? Our baptismal covenants, right? And those things that we promise to do, and mourning with those that mourn, and comfort those that stand in need of comfort. And those kind of things are just as important many times to people than any kind of monetary contribution you can give. And we could probably have a whole discussion one night on the best ways to serve, aside from monetary.
I would love to have a conversation on what the heck does it mean to mourn with those that mourn. Like, what does that really look like?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's going to be a heavy conversation.
Yeah.
That's a heavy conversation.
What direction that's going in.
That's after the new year. That's in the doldrums of winter.
Yeah.
Conversation to have.
All right, we'll have that one in January or something.
Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jeff.
No, I think it's important for us to remember, particularly right now, that my neighbor doesn't need my money. But and I don't want to get into it at all. There's been some events in our family recently where money's not the answer to serve someone else right now. They don't need that, but they need some support and time and and things like that. That, you know, that's the best way to serve my neighbor in this instance. And that's something that is harder for me to serve someone 1,000 miles away. You know, that's an easy thing to send money to those that are a distance from me. But those that are close, literally my neighbors next door or people in my community or family, you've got to dig down just a bit and figure out what you can do for them and support them a little better than just writing a check sometimes.
It's true.
Did Matt just freeze up on us there, Mark?
The screen did. I don't hear him.
He lost his battery in his laptop, I'll bet you.
Didn't he send out the invite? Wouldn't the whole Google Hangout shut down?
Oh, yeah, maybe. Well, maybe if we both disappear, this podcast is over. And
that'll be the smoothest ending we've ever had.
That's right. That's right. The technical fun of doing a podcast. So the one last thing I was going to ask before we finish it up, maybe you and I'll just have this discussion.
Okay.
Do you, when you and your wife donate to things, whether it's church, whether it's time, whether it's money, do you talk to your kids about that and explain why you do it?
That's a good question. 'Cause generally, when it's with the people that are not involved with the church or other things, usually it is like a kid in the neighborhood that we know who is doing some type of fundraiser or something, and a lot of the times it's, you know, somebody I know at work, or it's not something where it's done when I'm with my family, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I can't say that I have had lots of opportunity to talk to them. We have with our fast offerings, because it's around the idea of giving up food for a meal or two, you know, and so we've had those conversations.
Yeah.
But I can't say I've had lots of opportunity. There's been time where, you know, if you're walking down the street and there might be a homeless guy collecting money, or maybe somebody's playing music, trying to earn some money, like in the city or something. If I have change in my pocket, I'll give it to the girls to go put in there, and we'll talk a little bit about why they're doing that and what that money's for.
Yeah.
But I can't say that we've had a huge not interest was sort of looking for it. That hasn't been a huge push for us to do with our kids yet.
I think, you know, as I've thought about this topic a bit, and by the way, welcome back, Matt.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So we're just in the middle of a topic here. You just listen in for a minute.
Okay.
I think one of the things, and I kind of got to wrap up, at least for my part, because I got to go soon, but one of the things I think when we talk about teaching our kids why we do these things, why we donate, why we serve, I think a measure of success is if we see them doing it just as a natural response or natural reaction to a need, then perhaps we've taught that well as they've grown up. So if we're not having to force them to serve or to really obviously point out a need that people have, that if we see them responding, I think that's a good thing. I think that tells us a lot about teaching our kids to serve.
It's true. While you said that, actually, I did think of one last winter. I have a neighbor on the corner of that lives near me, that he was renting out his house, and so they had split up, and, you know, both parents and kids were living somewhere else. One of their kids was living in the house, and they realized, well, you know, we're wasting a lot of money letting just one person live in this big gigantic house. And so I spent a couple of weekends going over there to help them move, and, you know, they had since stopped coming to church, and so not a lot of people from the ward went to help out, you know, and he's trying to clean out his whole entire house. And so, you know, I did get the opportunity to tell them why I was going to help him move.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think the fact that they saw me leave home to go help somebody who needed it, I think is a good way to show them as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, you all caught up on things now, Matt, after your 30-second hiatus?
Yeah. I think it sounds like, how do we teach our kids to serve, or the importance to service, is that so, you know, I have the benefit of that my kids attend a school that's the primary focus of, well, like teaching the standards is the primary focus, but service learning is like really the vision of the school is that kids will be doing service, and so like that's a big part of what we're doing right now as a family. My son has to do almost like an Eagle project where he researches a problem and figures out a way to solve it, and he found a group that tutors refugees from Africa, and so that's what we do as a family on Tuesday nights. Well, one Tuesday night a month as we go tutor refugees from Africa, and so that's something that our family is doing together to serve. The foster care thing really has changed my daughter more than my son's life, and that idea of service, and that we're helping people who really need help, and so so those are a couple of opportunities that for our family have just kind of, I guess I shouldn't say they just kind of happened, but one through the structure of school, and then one through the inspiration that my wife had that we maybe have another kid out there that belongs in our family. So, but that's had a